to do a very general overview of the startup and the functions of this CNC router. We're going to consider starting the machine, warming the machine, homing the machine, surfacing the spoil board, and running an actual part with the cutter. First thing I'm going to do is go over to this unit and turn the switch on. Okay, after the power has been turned on, this handset will illuminate with numbers across the top. And at that point, it's time for me to home the machine. What I do at this point is hit the up arrow, which is right here, and the home position in sequence, 1 and 2. It's initializing the spindle, and it will start moving the machine to this position of the table. At this point, the machine is in the hard home position. The handset says run spindle warm up, enter for warm up. So I'm going to hit the enter button right here. And now the machine has begun a 15-minute sequence of running at various speeds to warm the bearing. Now that the warm-up sequence is complete, the machine has stopped right in the middle of the table. I have a home position stapled down to this machine that I use frequently, and what I'm going to do now is move the machine to this, which I call home number 1. So to do that, I'm going to hit the home button and the number 1 button. Now, this cutter is perfectly in line with the intersection of these two lines on the table. This surface is going to have to be conditioned or cut. I'm going to do that with a cutter that is 1 1/4 inches wide. If I were to put that cutter in there and bring it down into the intersection of these two lines, I would be cutting away 5/8 of an inch of each, because that's the radius or half of this diameter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this machine at a position that would put this cutter in that dimension instead of on top of it. Now we're going to offset the machine with this XYZ feature to compensate for the 1 1/4 inch diameter of this cutter. The way I'm going to do that is, first of all, I press the XYZ button, and it says move X to, and I put half of this dimension, which is 0.625, and then enter. Now it says move Y to, and again I go 0.625, enter. The Z is at 0, which is fine. I hit enter, and then enter again, and it has moved the machine to 625 in both the X and Y axis. This number shows that both the X and the Y are now set at 0.625. So what I'm going to do is use this button, which is another home position, a movable home position. I'm going to press that and then hit enter. Now the home position is 0, 0, which is offset at 6.625 on each axis. We're ready to surface the spoil board. Now that we've got the machine offset to compensate for the diameter of this cutter, I'm going to change the cutter to this spoil board cutter and proceed to cut down this surface. With these 2 wrenches, I'm going to carefully remove the cutter that is in there. I've got my hand holding the cutter so that it doesn't drop out. The solid carbide is very fragile. If it should drop and either contact the floor or a piece of metal, it would potentially ruin the cutter. Having taken the cutter out, I'm going to change the collet from the 1/4 inch to the 1/2 inch. This is a 1/2 inch shank. I spin the shaft of the motor into the collet, which I hold, and when it's slightly snug, I put this in position, holding it, and I put a little bit of tension on the nut so that it will stay there. Now I'm going to tighten it up, being very careful not to touch the carbide surfaces with the tools. Now it's ready to be moved over the area, and that's going to necessitate turning on the vacuum pump, which is here. Now that the vacuum pump is running, I'm going to move this cutter over the surface and drop it down to determine the exact position of this Z. That's done with these arrow keys. That's over, up, and then now it's going to be down. I stop the cutter slightly above the spoil board with the vacuum on, and with this offset tool, I bring the cutter in contact with this device. The first thing I do is hit this particular button that is the surface set. The handset tells me that I've got to go to 0, holding 0 to set that dimension. And as I do that, the machine slowly drops until it touches. Having done that, I now use the arrow keys to move this cutter to any point on the table where I want a surface to make it absolutely parallel to this gantry. So I can move this, I can jog this speed faster, move this to any location arbitrarily. That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to hit menu now, and the 2D parameters are going to give me the menu to tell the machine how deep to go, how fast to go, and those two principal ingredients have to be worked out here. So I hit enter at 2D parameters. The speed rate is set at 200, which for a surface like this is fine. The cut depth is at 0, so I'm going to hit enter at cut depth, and I'm going to put a decimal designation of 0.20 thousandths, 0.02, and hit enter. Okay? All these other default values for what we're going to do is fine. I go back to the menu, which is this button, twice, and I scroll down to the cut utilities and hit enter. At cut utilities, the cursor is on table mill, which is what we're doing, so I hit enter. The tool diameter is 1¼ inch, which is what I've specified, so we hit enter. The multi-pass is at 0, which is correct, enter. And now, to mill the table, I move to the start button. And when I do this, that tool will go 20 thousandths of an inch into that spoil board. Okay, now that the machine has completed the surfacing of the spoil board, this surface is perfectly parallel to the function of the bottom of this gantry or the cutter, which is very, very critical to do critically accurate work. There's two things we're going to do now, and we'll be fully ready for production. First of all, we're offset by 5/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do now is go back to the home 1 position, which is represented by the intersection of these two borders. To do that, I hit the home button, and it's giving me a question mark. Go to which one, 1 through 9, and I'm going to put 1. Now the machine is at 0, 0 at home 1. Okay? The next thing we want to do in anticipation of the production is to install this cowling, this dust collection cowling. The way I'm going to do that is with this up arrow. I'm going to lift the machine, and it simply clips on to these two clips on the spindle. This is all hooked up to the dust collection system over there, which is very loud, which we won't do right now. But this is all ready to pick up all the sawdust that's created in the production of the wall mounts that we're going to machine now.